Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's so good to be back. It's so good to see everybody. How are you doing today? I'm excited to be here. I didn't think we were going to get to do a live chat this week, but turns out I was able to. I cashed in some vacation time at work. So I didn't do it specifically just so we could stream, but it worked out, right? It worked out great. I didn't think we were going to get to do a live chat this week because my work schedule, but things just happened to work out for the best. So I got to be here today and I'm really excited to chat with you guys. We've got some pretty good topics to talk about. I'm going to try and make this week's chat a little more interactive. I'm going to run some polls and stuff and see what you guys think about some of the topics. I think that might be a little bit fun to get some more of your guys in chat's feedback on what kind of, you'll see. But a couple of the topics, I've got some poll ideas. So I think that would be fun. I'm going to run a couple of those and get your thoughts. And we've got some pretty good topics to talk about today. So what brings us here today? What can we chat about? A couple of the standout topics. First of all, of course, we got some numbers on The Last of Us on HBO. Now, this was tracking excellent in terms of reviews, right? Beforehand from critics, it was getting insane reviews. The last time I looked, it was at 99% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is absolutely unbelievable. This literally puts it among like the highest reviewed shows like ever, which is absolutely crazy. Like in terms of like one that got a good amount of reviews, there's a few every once in a while they get like 100% that have hardly any reviews, but it had quite a few, over 100, I believe, at 99%. So it's absolutely insane. We knew that critics loved it, and the question was, how's it going to go down with audiences? And we have some info directly from HBO. Now, the first thing that we found out from them was that it did a 4.7, I believe, million rating for Sunday night viewership, which was outstanding, right? That's the second biggest of any HBO series since 2010. So in the last 13 years, the only series, think about how many shows HBO has made in the last 13 years. The only series debut that was bigger was House of the Dragon. And House of the Dragon was coming off the biggest HBO show of all time, right? Game of Thrones. Literally the biggest show that HBO's ever had, a worldwide phenomenon. And the only thing that was bigger in the last 13 years than The Last of Us's debut was House of the Dragon, which I don't think anyone was really expecting House of the Dragon numbers for the debut because of that reason, right? The Last of Us is loved. A lot of people love The Last of Us, but if you look, like the best-selling game of that has 20 million players, right? 20 million sales, I should say, whereas House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones is being watched by way more than 20 million people per episode by the end of it. Way more. Once you factor in piracy and stuff, it was so much bigger than that. So even if you could manage to get every single The Last of Us player to show up for this show, you still wouldn't expect, House of the Dragon numbers. So that wasn't too surprising. It didn't match House of the Dragon, but it was an excellent rating. But that's not the end of the story, guys. It actually gets even better for this show. HBO has now come out and announced that in only 2 days, it's now passed over 10 million viewers, which is just insane. This is doing absolutely insane numbers. It's blowing up, and it'll be interesting to watch the trajectory of the show. It's getting incredible user scores. Last I checked, it was at 9.5 on IMDb, and the Rotten Tomato user score was at 96. So not only is it critics loving it, but it's also just general audiences watching the show. So we can talk about that if you guys want, what we think moving forward, what type of impact this might have on The Last of Us game sales or potentially even a part 3. That's one big topic we can discuss today. Another really big one is going to be the Microsoft layoffs that were announced. They have laid off over 10,000 people company-wide, and this isn't just regular quote Microsoft. This is impacting Xbox as well. We have found out now that Bethesda had some layoffs. We found out that the Coalition had some layoffs, and the studio that has apparently been hit the hardest of all, 343 Industries. It sounds like those layoffs were actually pretty severe, major layoffs at 343. It sounds like that it is primarily centered around the single player and campaign devs, which is very disappointing to hear because I actually thought Infinite had a pretty good campaign. There's some things I can talk about that, a little bit of tea, a little bit of behind the scenes things that I know about it probably, if you guys want to go into that. And pretty crazy to see. 343 appears to be in a lot of trouble, to be honest with you, and I don't think that's too surprising. The other big thing that comes out of what happened with 343 is Joe Staten has left. Right, he came in, the beloved Halo dev. He's been working on Halo since basically the beginning, practically. I think Halo 2 might have been his first game. But it might have even been Halo 1. But he's been, a lead dev on Halo for forever. And he has left. Now he's still with Microsoft. He moved over to Xbox Publishing. But it's still a pretty big blow for 343 to lose him. So we can talk about that if you guys want, and really anything that you guys want to discuss. Now, there's going to be, if this is your first time ever, sorry, as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you. Your comments, your questions, you just drop them down into chat, and we talk about the latest news in the video game industry. There's going to be two ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's the free method. You just type a question in chat, whatever you want, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. If you want to guarantee that I get to your question, the way to do that's going to be the super chat option. You just type a donation of whatever you want. It alerts me, and I get to super chats immediately. As always, don't feel pressured or obligated to donate in super chat. It's just a way to help support me and the channel. I don't think there's any real housekeeping notes off the top that I can think of. Chat's already filling up, so that's good to see. We should have plenty to talk about today. And let's get rocking and rolling on your guys' questions. Okay, and it's great to see you guys here. We're going to get kicked off with a two-part super chat here. Thank you so much from Anthony Johnson. Very kind of you, Anthony. Thank you so much. What is the health of the gaming industry now? This is such a great question. I'm glad you asked this, because this is a debate I was actually just having with someone. Christopher Dring has talked a lot recently about how spotty games were in 2022 for AAA gaming. Callisto, Saints Row, Gearbox, Ubisoft, and many new releases underperformed. Now layoffs at Xbox. Is this a tough time for gaming companies? Anthony, it's pretty interesting. We talked about this on really like the last couple chats. I think one of the issues here, Anthony, and this is something that we've talked about, part of the issue right now in the video game industry is these dev cycles. For example, you mentioned Ubisoft. That's one of the things that's really impacting Ubisoft. And in fact, there's been several articles written now about like what's going on internally at Ubisoft and all of the struggles. And one of those things was how long their games are taking. They're just taking forever to get out. Think about how long ago Avatar started development. Think about, how long ago some of these other projects have started development. Some of them have been in development for a very, very long time. And in fact, an article that came from Inside Gaming was talking about how there are games right now that have already been in development for a little while at Ubisoft, and they're still not slated to release till 2027. This is such an issue. I'm not going to go on the big long tirade that I did like 2 weeks ago or whatever, guys, because I know we've kind of already gone over this. But you could say the same thing about Xbox, right? You're mentioning Xbox here. Look at the Xbox dev cycles. Look at how long Fable is taking to get out. Look at how long Starfield's taking to get out. Look at how long, I could just go down the list. All of these games are just taking way too long. It's such an issue in this industry, and it is I'm trying to think of the word to use here. It is something that must be fixed. It has to be. I truly, you're asking me about the health of the AAA industry. I don't think it can survive on these dev cycles. I really don't. It's too much of a gamble. We've talked about this. If it takes you 6-7 years to put a game out, and you put a game out as a studio and that game bombs, and it's going to take you another 5 to 6 years to get a game out, you're talking you released one game over the period of 12 to 13 years? That's unsustainable. It's a business model that doesn't work. You show that to any single businessman or leader or anything, and you say, you're going to gamble one thing every 13 years and just hope it works out. 2, I guess, technically, because it'll be the end of a life cycle. If it takes you 6 to 7 years for the first game, another 5-6 years or whatever for the next game, you're going to get 2 games over the course of over a decade. It's not sustainable. It doesn't work. You got to hope that game hits, but if that game misses, you can't run a business that way. So they have to get fixed. I don't know how we've talked about this a lot. I don't know what the answer is. I have no idea what the fix is. I don't know if scope needs to be narrowed on some of these games. I don't know if technology breakthroughs are going to really help, but we can't keep doing 5, 6, 7 year dev cycles as an industry. It's just not going to work. It's not sustainable. This industry will fail if that continues. So we're never going to get to an area like it was super long time ago where you can put out a AAA game in 2 years. That's never going to happen. But if we can at least get to where most studios can release a game every 4 years, I think it's in a pretty healthy spot. But these 5, 6, 7 or longer year dev cycles, which to be honest are not super uncommon. There's a lot of games that are taking 5, 6, 7 years. It's not going to work. You just can't run a business like that. Look at how long Suicide Squad's been in development at Rocksteady. If that game bombs, guys, what is the state of Rocksteady? I mean, think about how long Arkham Knight was ago. And now we're finally getting to Suicide Squad. You just can't run businesses like that. It just doesn't work. So that is a huge part of it, Anthony, a massive part. In fact, that's part of the reason why Ubisoft's hurting so bad. You know, we talked about their results. Think about how few games Ubisoft released last year. They released hardly anything. And the few games they did release weren't like these big, huge AAA games they're known for, or stuff like Just Dance and Mario and Rabbids. You know, there was no Assassin's Creed there. There was no Avatar. There was no equivalent of The Division or Watch Dogs. Like, they're barely releasing anything. It's going to be hard to have good. Same for Xbox. Xbox essentially released nothing but Pentiment last year. If you're not releasing games, you can't make money. You know what I mean? Like, as a developer or as a publisher. So that is a huge part of it. And then the second part that you're talking about, like in terms of like some of the bombs, I'll be honest, I'm less worried about that because there's always going to be bombs every year. That's just the way entertainment works. You know, if you look at movies, there's always some bombs every single year at the box office. There's going to always be some underperformers and some bombs in the video game industry. So the specific part of like, we've seen a few games miss. We've seen Callisto miss, but that was way too expensive from what the reports are. We saw Saints Row mix, but that can really come down to quality. People just did not like the game. The pre-orders were tracking good. The pre-orders for Saints Row were tracking actually above expectations, but then once the game actually released, it underperformed. Clearly, that was due to word of mouth and things like that. So the individual bombs I'm less worried about. The reason, Anthony, that they stand out so much more, I think, in 2022 is because 2022 was so light on releases in general. There was just like hardly anything from third parties. Nintendo still had a pretty good amount of releases. Sony first party still had a pretty good amount of releases. But if you look at third party AAA, there really just wasn't a whole lot that hit the market last year, and especially ones that were super good. Games that were excellent that hit last year, Elden Ring, you know, huge sales. You could go even into the first party stuff. God of War sold a ton. Pokemon sold a ton. You know what I mean? So it's not that everything's bombing. I think that we had some bombs. There were so few third-party AAA releases, it makes it look even worse. I think 2023, in terms of like the overall health, will look a lot better because I think you're going to have stuff like Jedi Survivor do huge numbers. I think you're going to have stuff like Hogwarts Legacy do huge numbers. There's going to be a lot, I think, of third-party games that do really well this year. So this year should look better. But dev cycles got to get fixed. And again, I'm not blaming the devs. When I say dev cycles have to be fixed, this isn't me saying developers, you're lazy and you're not getting things done. Not at all. I know how insane a AAA project is to get out the door. But scope's got to get narrowed, or we need technological breakthrough, something. You can't be having these insane dev cycles and think it's just going to work out. So we'll see. Hopefully, Anthony, 2023 looks a lot better. If it doesn't, if you see like Jedi Survivor underperform and Hogwarts Legacy underperform and a ton of games underperform, then we need to really maybe hit the panic button. But I don't think that'll be the case. A couple more super chats coming in. Thank you so much, guys. Highlander kicking us off with a 10. The layoffs of most of the 10K is from the engineering division. The Bethesda layoffs are from Bethesda Publishing, as there's a lot of redundancy there. Microsoft does not need two publishers. We will know more with the investors call next week. I cannot wait to hear your take on that call. Well, you know, it'll be interesting to see how much Microsoft talks about gaming on the call. Because they usually barely talk about it. So I expect Satya to at least mention gaming. He always does at least mention it, but there's usually very, very little actual info on gaming. So there should be a lot of interesting information on Microsoft as a whole at the earnings call, but I'll be honest, I'm not expecting him to comment much at all about what's going on at 343 or Bethesda or anything like that. Yeah, it does seem that Bethesda themselves and the Coalition, which also had some layoffs, it sounds like these two are not like major layoffs. It sucks to see anyone lose their job. But it sounds like the studio that was actually truly hit where they lost a lot of people. All you have to do is go on Twitter and you can see a ton of devs tweeting about how they're no longer at 343. 343 is the one that got hit really hard. And I'm sure there's going to be some more questions about the future of Halo and 343 in here. So I'm not going to go like super long on this right now until we get to like a question specifically about it. But yeah, I agree. Bethesda, it doesn't look like they let off like a ton of devs at Bethesda. Again, sucks to see anyone lose their job. But like you said, there's a lot of overlap in terms of publishing. Coalition, it sounds like they maybe lost a few people, but nothing major. But 343, yeah, they got hit hard. And we'll see. I'm hoping we get some juicy info, Highlander, on the earnings call. We definitely will about the company as a whole, but hopefully we hear a lot about Xbox's gaming division too. Thank you for those super chats, man. All right, super chats are cleared. Let's get to your guys' free questions. Thank you so much, guys. How much Lee Ford, thoughts on the Microsoft layoffs? My overall thoughts on them, it super sucks. This is a tech-wide thing right now in general. I will say that it is a bad look for Microsoft right now to be laying off 10,000 people while they're also trying to acquire a giant publisher that's going to have 10,000 more people now joining the company. And that is going to cost them $70 billion, and they're making record profits. So I will say that it all looks bad. It all looks bad from the outside. That's just the truth, guys. It's not a good look. And it's especially, I would say, not a good look while they're trying to make this acquisition. Because if anything, it just gives more and more ammunition for these people like the FTC and others that are trying to resist this acquisition. They now have a giant data point they can point to and say, how are you going to take on all these devs and all this cost when you just laid off 10,000 people? How do we have guarantee that you're not going to just start laying off all these people after you acquire them? You know what I mean? Trust me, FTC and things are going to mention this, like they are. It's just too low hanging fruit for them to not latch onto this and be like, because that is a truth. It's like you're laying off all these people. Now you're trying to acquire this business. How do we know you're not going to turn around and lay off a ton of these people as well in the next year or so? So I'm not telling you that's what Microsoft would do. I'm saying that's something that the FTC is going to be pointing out because it's just right there in front of them. It's not a great look. I don't run Microsoft's business. I can't tell you the exact financials behind it and if it makes sense and things like that. The overall thing that I'm seeing from people that do watch this sort of thing, they do. The main thing I'm getting is it's mostly pressure from Wall Street, that Wall Street wants a lot of people laid off to reduce costs, and that this may not be something that Microsoft internally, if everything was going great with Wall Street, would have done. But I don't know this, guys. This isn't insider information. It's just that is what I've seen people that follow Wall Street and things like that saying, that they believe that this is because of pressure from Wall Street to lay people off for that share price. You know what I mean? So we'll see. It's not a great look, Hamish. They did hire a ton of people over the last few years. It is a tech-wide thing in general. Amazon just laid off a ton of people. I expect more big tech companies to lay off a ton of people. A lot of these tech companies did a ton of hiring during the pandemic because so much stuff went online. So much stuff was, people accessing computers and technology and stuff through their house and not really going out. So there was a huge boom in hiring. And unfortunately, we're seeing things return down to earth. I mean, it's fortunate in a good way for us that the pandemic does seem to be easing up. You know what I mean? Things are much, much better than they were 2 years ago, for example. But in terms of like these companies and all the hiring they did, now things are falling back down to earth. And I think you're going to see a lot of tech layoffs in general. But that's a few of my thoughts. I think we had a 10 super chat come in. We did. Frostbite Slash, great to see you, Frostbite. Thank you so much for that super chat. Hey, Benji, been MIA for a while. All good, Frostbite. It's great to see you back here with us. Had stuff going on in life. No sweat, man. No sweat. You don't have to always be here. Take your time. Show up whenever you want. I really appreciate it. What's your thoughts on The Last of Us show? Oh, great. This is so much fun. I think it's a testament that companies can follow the source material of a game, and it can be successful. Okay, let's run the first poll I'm going to run here. I'm going to really quick ask you guys. Simple question. Have you watched The Last of Us? It'll pop up in chat in just a second. I'm going to give you yes, no, and not yet but plan on it. Okay, there we go. Cool. So there should be a poll dropping down into chat for you guys. Okay, so my thoughts on The Last of Us show. First of all, I think as a consumer, just someone watching it, absolutely loved it. I was actually, to be honest with you, blown away by the first episode. I expected good things going into this show. As soon as I heard the people involved in it, once I heard, hey, Craig Mazin from Chernobyl is going to be making this. I mean, that alone, like you literally hear that. You could hear nothing else. You could literally just hear Craig Mazin, who did Chernobyl. If you haven't seen Chernobyl, it's mind-blowing. As soon as you got that piece of info, you were like, my goodness, that's a real good showrunner right there. Then you heard it's going to be on HBO, which again, let's just be honest, HBO has an incredible pedigree of quality. Have they had some misses? Sure. Do a lot of us not like that last season of Game of Thrones? Sure. But if you look at the general history of HBO, they're maybe the most premier channel. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if there's anyone that has like the quality in terms of just years and years and years of high bar quality entertainment like what HBO has done. So you heard Craig Mazin, you hear HBO, then you find out Neil Druckmann himself is directly involved. He's going to be writing on the show, and he's even directing, guys. This upcoming episode is directed by him. So this Sunday, he's the actual director of the episode. That's huge for Neil. And I think that's a great sign for the show, too, having him so intricately evolved with the series. So my thoughts as a consumer, all good. Like, I was blown away by it. I thought that the few changes and additions they made actually improved things. I didn't have really any complaints in terms of some of the changes. You know, here's the thing. It truly captured the spirit of what The Last of Us is. If you're going to make some changes, getting into the second part of your question now, like respecting the source material, I made a tweet about this, and I think some people might have misunderstood what I was saying, but I think most got it. And I was saying, I hope The Last of Us is a message to, because we know there's so many video game adaptations coming down the line, right? Whether you're talking about series, whether you're talking about movies. I mean, there's like dozens of projects coming. And I made a tweet and I said, I hope The Last of Us is a message to people that, you know, you need to respect the source material. And what I meant by that was you don't have to make it a clone, right? We know The Last of Us show plays very close to the game, right? Really, really close to it. But it did make some changes and stuff, and I've heard throughout the show you're going to see some changes. But it really captured the spirit, and that's what I mean. Not everything is going to be as easily adaptable as The Last of Us is, right? There's going to be something like, you know, pick a random thing. I don't know. Off the top of your head, pick a random game. Not every one of them is just like super adaptable to live action. You know what I mean? Games are there's a huge variety in terms of gaming. Some stuff has super linear, super story heavy stuff like The Last of Us that's going to be easier to adapt. And then you're going to have something, let's just say like an Elden Ring or a Bloodborne, where you can't just make a one-to-one adaptation of that, right? You would have to make a lot of changes, a lot of things like that. The most important thing is you really respect the source material and have the spirit of it. That's one mistake Halo made, in my opinion. And I liked Halo, I think, more than your average person. If you ask your average person, what did you think about the Halo show? A lot of people really hated it. There were some episodes of the Halo show I actually really liked. Whenever they were focusing the Halo show on Halsey, when they were focusing the Halo show around like the core Covenant, the plot that we know of Halo. Whenever they were doing those sorts of things, there was actually a lot about the Halo show I really liked. I really liked the episode where they were delving into like Chief's past a little bit and he was getting some flashbacks. But there was some stuff in the Halo show that was just, to me, not respecting the source material. The way Chief acts, again, I'm okay with actually Chief kind of taking his helmet off a little bit. It was done way too much, but from the books and stuff, Chief isn't just always have his helmet on. Removing the helmet sometimes, I was actually kind of okay with that. It didn't need to be as much as it was, where he spent probably more time out of the helmet than in it. I think that was a mistake. But every once in a while, if they had him take the helmet off, not that big of a deal to me. But there are huge core issues to what they did here. Spoiler alert for if you haven't seen the Halo show. To me, the most egregious and the one that's kind of almost unforgivable is what happened between Chief and the human Covenant, like prisoner of war. Those two hooking up, I mean, listen, I understand humans hook up. I'm just saying, like, this is not Chief's character, like, at all. This is not respecting the source material. Chief is nothing like this. Chief is not going to just hook up with literally a prisoner of war, guys. That's literally what she was at the time. She was a POW that has been captured because she's working for the enemy, and Chief decides to hook up with her. I'm sorry, but that's not an accurate representation remotely of the spirit of the character. And that's what I mean, right? You're going to have to adapt some things. You're going to have to change some things in these shows and these movies to make them work. But you got to respect that source material. You got to make it truly, know where it came from. And I hope, my hope is that what you're seeing out of The Last of Us, whether it's the amazing critic scores, whether it's the amazing audience scores, whether it's the huge ratings that it's doing, I do hope Frostbite Slash that this is a message to any of those upcoming projects. We know you're going to have to adapt. We know you're going to have to do some changes, but you really need to respect where these things came from. And I think they'll go over a lot better if you do that. So it'll be interesting to see, Frostbite, but yeah, it's big. It's big. And let's look at the poll results right now. Wow, so it's overwhelming. So right now I asked you guys, have you watched The Last of Us on HBO? 71% of you said yes. That's pretty amazing, right? We're talking a huge chunk. The other 14% said not yet, but plan on it. So you're looking at 84% of the poll right now either have watched The Last of Us or plan on watching it. Only 16% say no. That's really good. That's really good to see. All right, we had a couple other super chats dropping. Benji here with a 10. Hey, Benji, and thanks for the super chat, Benji. Great to see you. Hey, Benji, the layoffs from Microsoft are unacceptable when they did $83 billion in net income last year. Sad to see some fanboys defending it. Thoughts on possible impact for Bethesda and especially 343. Cool, this will lead right into a second poll I can run, because now we're starting to get into 343 since you're asking directly on the impact. So first, let's dive into, is it acceptable or not? I agree that this level of layoff on the surface, again, I don't work for Microsoft, so I can't speak to their direct financials. I do agree, Benji, that like I said earlier, on the surface, it does seem hard to defend. Whenever you factor in, like you said, the massive profit that Microsoft's posting currently, when you factor in this giant acquisition that they're doing currently, where they're spending $70 billion on a company and taking on 10,000 more jobs, it's not a great look, man. It's just really not a great look. Now, again, I don't run their financials. Maybe they truly believe that this was completely necessary. I don't know that 10,000, I mean, that's a lot of people, dude. But again, like I said, I heard it's primarily pressure from Wall Street on the share price. So maybe that is the direct reason. I'm not going to defend it. I'm also not going to say that I know better than Microsoft because I don't work there. I'm not the guy that's running all of their charts and all of their profit models and, how much this makes sense or not. It does seem extreme. I mean, 10,000 is a lot of freaking people to fire at once. I do believe that there probably is some redundancies within the company. Someone mentioned Bethesda earlier. I think it was Highlander, where some of the people let go were from the publishing arm. Kind of makes sense. Again, you hate to see it, but kind of makes sense considering Xbox has their own publishing arm already. But I'm not going to come out here and say Microsoft's completely in the right to fire 10,000 people either, especially when you see the profit margins that they have. So I don't know, man. It is sad to see. I agree. Now, thoughts on the possible impact for Bethesda and especially 343. Bethesda, I think, comes out of this mostly unimpacted. If the reports are true that it's mostly publishing and not really so much devs, I think things don't change much for the Bethesda themselves. 343 is the one where things could potentially be pretty dire. And here's where I can talk to a little bit of tea. So I have heard pretty reliably, and I don't want to come out here and say absolutely 1,000,000% this was absolutely going to release and it was 100% a thing that was going to happen. But I have heard that there was a single player expansion to Halo Infinite that was being worked on at 343 at some point in time. I don't know if that is still in development. I don't know if that was canceled a while back. I don't know. The one thing I can tell you is that I have heard through the grapevine fairly reliably was that the plan was to have some sort of new single player component for Halo Infinite. The thing that really worries me here is that the main people that have been let go from 343 primarily are centered around campaign and single player, including Joe Staten, who from what I understand was also working on this single player expansion at one point. Again, I don't know, which isn't surprising. It shouldn't be because he was literally leading 343 at the time. But I've heard he was also involved with it. Now, him leaving is a pretty big red flag to the future state of that. Not to mention all of the single player and campaign people being let go. So I'm curious if this has been canceled. Now, again, I don't know that for sure. I don't want to tell you guys there was a single player expansion that was canceled. Go run around the internet and tell everyone that, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I would put it as extremely high confidence. At one point in time, there was a single player edition being worked on. And I'm curious now the state of that, given the people that were let go. Now, as to the future of Halo and the future of 343, this is a big question. It just needs to be said, and you don't want to ever be, at least I don't ever want to be rude to devs. I really respect developers. I literally go out of my way to do my best to be as respectful as possible. But one thing just needs to be said. 343 has not handled the Halo franchise well. And I don't think that's a hot take. I just think it's the honest to God truth. I think it's going to be very hard at this point in time. After what's happened from Halo 4 to Halo 5 to Halo Infinite, I think it is extremely hard to say that 343 did a good job of managing this franchise. I'm sure there was struggles. I'm sure there was issues, and it's never an easy thing, guys. Taking like literally Xbox's biggest IP, giving it to what was essentially a brand new studio built from the ground up to work on Halo, that's never going to be an easy transition. This isn't me saying 343 are bad people. It's just stating the truth, guys. At this point in time, it just needs to be said. 343 have done some great things. I think Halo Infinite's core gameplay is excellent. I think that Halo Infinite had a very solid campaign, to be honest with you. And that first month of multiplayer, I was having an absolute blast with the game. My impressions after like the first month of Halo Infinite was, wow, I really love this game. The problem for Halo Infinite fell into all of the post-game stuff that we now know very strongly, right? They've completely dropped the ball, would be putting it mildly, for what has happened to the post-launch content of that game. We're talking 6-month seasons, absolute crazy stuff. So what that means for the future of Halo and the future of 343, I honestly do not know. It's a great, great question. I do think, Benji, you don't see Halo for a long time. I don't think you see a new Halo for a very long time. Maybe some sort of spin-off, maybe some sort of thing like that, I could see. But a next mainline Halo, I think it's quite a ways away. Quite a ways away. And I'm very curious what they do next. Whether 343 stays the lead on that game, whether they are the lead but they have a major co-developing partner. Of course, there's always been support studios, but I mean like a straight up, we're co-developing this game. Kind of like what's going on with Perfect Dark, where it's the Initiative and it's Crystal Dynamics. I don't know, but something has to change, because it's now been essentially 3 games. They've had 3 games to really nail this, and they haven't done it for any of them yet. There was good parts of Halo 4, but there was a lot that the player base did not like. There was good parts of Halo 5, but there was a lot the player base didn't like. Same with Infinite. They have not absolutely nailed one Halo game yet. So it's going to be interesting to see. And this actually ties into a second poll idea I had. Let me go ahead and close the other poll first. And then let's start a new one. And here is my question for you guys, because I'm just curious. What do you want to see out of the future of Halo? One sec. One, I'm going to say a sequel to Infinite from 343. Next, I'm going to say a complete reboot, guys. Complete reboot. Just reboot this whole franchise, because I almost think that's the best idea. We'll see what you guys think. I know people love Halo. At this point in time, the franchise has so much baggage. The story has gone so off the rails. I almost wonder if a reboot's the best idea. Literally reboot this thing from the beginning. Just a brand new, essentially the Halo timeline starting over. I know that hardcore Halo fans probably hate that idea, and it might make them super angry, but I almost wonder if it's the best thing for the franchise. So I'm going to put a reboot option in there. And then the third option I'm going to give you is a new studio makes the next Halo. Or I'll put different studio. Different studio makes next Halo. Okay, so those are your options, guys. Sequel to Infinite from 343, a complete reboot of the franchise, or a different studio makes the next Halo game. All right, poll should be dropping into the chat. Very curious to see what you guys think about that. All right. I'll read the results here in just a little bit. All right. Where are we at now on the super chats? Reverse World is dropping a 5 super chat. I don't know if you guys are liking these polls, but I am. I think it's really fun, actually. Gets things more interactive. I get to see more of your guys' feedback. It's fun. So I'm going to try and make this a thing. If you guys like doing these polls, I'm going to try and include like a couple polls per chat on the big topics. Reverse World with a 5 super chat. Low risk, high reward games for Game Pass like High on Life has to be a secret weapon for Microsoft. This is a great call, Reverse World. I agree with this big time. It couldn't have been that expensive, but produce big hype. Reverse World, you're spot on the money. And I think the literal next game that could be that next High on Life could be Atomic Heart. We need to see if people like it. But Reverse World, I agree with you so much. If I was Microsoft right now, I would be publishing, yeah, but I would be publishing and helping finance whatever you got to do. A lot of these type of games you're talking about, these kind of like AA games, I'd be trying to get them as exclusives on Game Pass. I would be really working with some of these studios. Even if you can't make it a fully exclusive game, like Atomic Heart. Atomic Heart's not fully exclusive, but that's not a huge AAA budget. It's a pretty small team. Same thing happened with High on Life. And you can even put a Plague Tale Requiem in this mix, because Focus Interactive is a publisher, but the actual Plague Tale team isn't huge. It's not like a true AAA studio. They have, I think around like 100 people or so worked on a Plague Tale Requiem. So it's not like indie. I don't think you can call it an indie game, but I also wouldn't call it like a giant AAA game. It's like in that AA space. I agree with you. A lot of these projects that aren't super expensive, right? They're not quite indie, like indie small, but they're not giant budget. Getting a lot of this content on Game Pass, and preferably exclusive if you can. But yes, getting these sorts of games as day one launches, High on Life, Atomic Heart. If I was Microsoft, I'd really be financing and funding and doing what I can to get on this. Because I think it is the sweet spot. These huge AAA games from third parties, I think are going to be very hard to get day one on Game Pass. You're seeing Monster Hunter Rise hit day one, but keep in mind that was already on Switch, already on PC. Same thing with Persona 5 Royal. That was already on PlayStation in the past. So you're not seeing many giant AAA games. Like you're not seeing Star Wars Jedi Survivor day one on Game Pass, for example. You're not seeing Hogwarts Legacy day one on Game Pass. It's going to be really hard to convince a studio to do that model. But getting these size games, like you said, the sweet spot, these High on Lives, these Atomic Hearts, etc., that I think they can get a lot of. I think they could potentially get quite a few of those hitting day one on Game Pass. So I agree with you, Reverse World. If I was Microsoft, I would be betting big on that, because it'll get you a steady flow of Game Pass releases, and they're not super crazy expensive. And if some of them hit, they can really help. So I agree. I think you're spot on. Highlander with a 10 super chat here. Thank you, Highlander. I think that's your third one. Off topic, did you see the video from Boston Science? It tossed a full tool bag to a carpenter and jump kicked a fridge and backflipped off it. This is how the Cylon started. Very cool of their robot. Yeah, the stuff going on at Boston Dynamics, I think it's called, or something like that. Crazy. I love tech. I love robots. I love AI. I think there's some crazy stuff coming down the pipeline with AI and robotics. I think the next 50 years look completely insane, the transformation we're going to see in those two areas. It's nuts, Highlander. It's crazy. I don't know if I want to go to the full-on, the robot revolution's coming, like some people are, right? Like they're going to come kill us all and things like that. I think a potential world where something like that could happen would be very far off. But, and put it this way, I think most of us in our lifetimes, I would say if you're middle age or younger, I think you will see robots become a pretty heavy part of society. And what I mean by that, I don't mean it's going to be like iRobot, where they're all doing everything for you and you see a robot on every street corner. But I think in the next 20, 30 years, you will see huge advances in AI and robotics where they're doing a lot of jobs, lots of tasks, things like that. There's just a lot coming down the pipeline. So don't expect it like next year, but it's pretty crazy. I think the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years is a pretty crazy revolution in that department. So it'll be interesting to watch. And thank you for those super chats. All right, guys, let's look at the results of this poll now for Halo. Let's see what your guys thinking. Okay, guys, so here is the results as of now. This could change. This could fluctuate a little bit. But I asked you, what do you want to see from the future of Halo? 55% of you, the thing that you guys think is most important about Halo is that a different studio makes it. That's pretty crazy, guys. Over half. Over half of the vote right now in the poll wants someone besides 343 to make the next Halo game. That is pretty shocking to see. You know, I can't say that I disagree with some of the feelings here, but it's crazy to see that, right? To see that it's so heavy. That's actually gone up now. It's 57%. Want to see a different studio make the next Halo game. Second place, 35% of you want a complete reboot. You just want this franchise to start over, start from scratch. I actually don't think that's a bad idea. And only 8%, guys, by far the smallest amount of the vote, only 8% want a sequel to Infinite from 343. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy results, to be honest with you, that's that low. Again, not a huge sample size right now, but it's still fun to run the poll. Right now, out of the people viewing this, less than 10% want the next Halo to be a sequel to Infinite from 343. Pretty shocking. Kind of shows you the big things that need to happen there. If 343 is going to remain on this franchise, if they are going to be the lead dev of this franchise moving forward, which is I honestly think probably what's going to happen no matter what, just because it's such a huge task to try and give this to somebody else, they're going to have to do some serious things to convince people. I'll say that the next Halo is going to be good. You know, and it's sad because I think they absolutely nailed the gameplay. I think Halo Infinite's core gameplay is spectacular, but to convince people that this next Halo game, whatever it ends up being, that like they need to be there day one to play this game, they're gonna have to do some serious convincing because I think they've really burned bridges with the community and with gaming as a whole. So pretty interesting, guys. Pretty interesting stuff. All right, back to your free questions because super chats are cleared, I believe. Yes, they are. Okay. And if I get like a good question that has one more idea for a good poll, we'll run one more. We'll just see how it goes. Those were the two that I had planned. But we'll see. If you guys like doing the polls, we'll do some more. I'll see you in the chat. Do you guys like doing the polls? Let me scroll down. Do you guys think the polls are fun? I think they're fun to get your guys' feedback. Let me know at the bottom of the chat if you like the polls for future chats. Okay. Next question here. We got Randy Norman. Won't be able to stay for the live stream today. I'm interning for Congress. Whoa. For my final semester before I graduate. So have a good stream, Benji. Randy, doing big things out here, guys. Give Randy a congrats here. Interning for Congress for final semester before graduate. Sounds like you're doing big things, Randy. If you catch up and you see this later, if you come back and watch the stream, congrats to you, Randy. Doing big things. Very exciting. I'm sure you're going to absolutely kill it and do awesome in Congress. And very cool to see. I think we're having a good stream. So thank you so much, Randy. All right, DB will rise. Benji, considering the fact that new content for Apex has slowed down a lot over the past 2 years, and there won't be a new Call of Duty this year, do you think Respawn's next FPS will release this year? Oh man, that is a great question. Do we know if Respawn is actually making a new shooter? Well, we do actually know they're making a Star Wars shooter, but I can't see the Star Wars shooter releasing this year because Jedi Survivor's this year. So, DB, I'm going to guess no, we don't see it. And the main reason I'm going to guess no is because it's a Star Wars shooter, their next game. And I don't think that Respawn will release 2 Star Wars games in the same year, right? Unless I'm crazy. I thought that was publicly announced. Respawn's making a Star Wars shooter. It is. Yep. So, DB, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no new shooter from Respawn this year. Now, it could be next year. I don't know. It depends on how far in development that is. But their next standalone shooter game, unless something has changed, is going to be a Star Wars title. And I just can't see 2 Respawn Star Wars games in the same year. You know what I mean? Because you're going to have Jedi Survivor here in March. And I can't see them doing 2 from the same studio in the same year in the same IP. So I'm going to guess no. It's a good thought, though, because like I said, Apex has slowed down a bit on content, and there's no Call of Duty this year, but I still don't think it happens. I think they'll, maybe best case scenario, you see that shooter next year. When was that announced? When did they announce that they're working on the shooter? It was announced on... Trying to see the date. That way we can maybe have an idea. So it was that announced at the very beginning of 2022, January 2022. So, and that was probably when it was in early pre-production, I'm going to guess. So, no, I don't think you see, like I said, the earliest would be 2024. That would give it about a 3-year dev cycle. We do know that Respawn, it seems to be very efficient in terms of releases. No, like I said, 2024 would be the earliest for this game because that would be a 3-year dev cycle, and it could be longer. It could be, 2025 even. But I don't think you'll see the new shooter from them before 2024. That's best case scenario because I'd give them 3 years. Because you have all of 2022 since it was announced at the beginning of January, all of 2023, and then maybe holiday 2024. You essentially have 3 years because I'm sure it started before January 2022 when they announced it, but not much. Probably maybe a few months before that. So... best case scenario is 2024, maybe 2025. Logan Hardy. Benji, hope you're doing well. Any insight on how PlayStation production should progress further in future products after The Last of Us? Wow. Also, you are like John Campea for gaming. Oh, that makes me feel so good, dude, because I love John Campea. I literally watch the John Campea show every single day. So, to me, that is an extremely high compliment, Logan Hardy. I'm a big fan of the John Campea show. Like I said, literally watch it every day. I think they have the best entertainment show out there. Not specifically for gaming, but if you guys want to watch a really good show daily on YouTube for movies and TV, the John Campea show, can't recommend it highly enough. Love those guys, whether it's John, Robert Meyer Burnett, oh my goodness, my brain's not working, but you guys know. If you've watched them, you know the crew. Big fan of them. So to me, that is a high compliment, Logan. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Now, any insight on how PlayStation production should progress after The Last of Us? I think this was a very strong message to Sony, which I think they would have already known anyway since it's their IP. But God of War and Horizon need to be very, very faithful to where they came from. And again, guys, here's a good note about what we were talking about earlier, about how whenever you adapt things, you have to adapt them, but it's about keeping the spirit of it. Look at Gran Turismo. Now, I don't know if Gran Turismo is going to be good. Gran Turismo might end up being a bad movie. But I will say that behind-the-scenes footage that they showed, I thought looked pretty good, actually. I was actually pretty interested in it. They're using camera angles that are very similar to the Gran Turismo games, like whenever they're racing. They did some cool stuff with, the camera mounting systems and stuff while they're filming to try and make it look like Gran Turismo. Obviously, you couldn't just adapt Gran Turismo strictly as it is to a movie, right? So they're having to change things. But at least from the behind-the-scenes footage, and it's based off a true story, it does feel like they're trying to capture the spirit of what that game represents. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean about how even if you got a radically changed thing to make it work, keep that spirit alive. After The Last of Us, the next 2 really big ones from them, I think the 2 most important are Horizon and God of War. They should be taking to heart what has paid off for The Last of Us. Again, that doesn't mean these games have to be a shot-for-shot, or these shows have to be a shot-for-shot remake, right? Because there is some of that in The Last of Us. There are certain scenes that are literally like a shot-for-shot recreation. The same exact clothing. Some of the detail I saw was insane. The same brick look behind a character, or the way the framing of the shot identical to the game. Like, there's some of that. I don't think that, God of War and Horizon have to be identical to the games, but they should be very faithful. You're going to have to change some stuff, sure, but they should be very, very faithful. I think that's the biggest thing PlayStation production should learn from this. Keep that spirit intact. Don't try and go too radical like what Halo did, for example. Some change is good and fine. It makes things interesting if you're someone who played the game. I liked the additions to The Last of Us Episode 1, but none of them to me felt like they were trying to ruin the spirit of the game. Ken B. Benji, I don't think you ever did a tweet about December NPD. I didn't because it's so boring. I'm sorry. NPD is just fallen off, guys. This breaks my heart to say because I've loved following and covering NPD for so long, but it's all become so nebulous. They do everything they can to bury all data possible, and even in the PR now, barely mention anything, and it comes so freaking late that it's like, I'll be honest, Ken, it hurts me. I'm going to try and keep doing it, but it's hard for me to cover NPD and get like any interest in it, because it's like, here's the results for the last month, 20 days later or whatever, you know what I mean? Like 3 weeks after the fact, and I don't have a single number for you, and I can barely even give you like some PR statements about it because they just don't say anything anymore. So it's a bummer. Now, I will say the big surprise for me, you're asking what's the big surprise? It was Switch #1. I'll be honest with you, I did not expect that. I really thought it was going to be PlayStation 5. Now, I can say, through some number crunching that's been done, partially by my buddy Welfare, and again, this isn't an official number, I don't have this leaked to me, but it sounds like PlayStation 5 and Switch were likely very, very close in the finish. I don't know. Like I said, I think I mentioned this last week. I used to get every single month's NPD data leaked to me. Like, I used to literally know the results in terms of pure units every single month. That doesn't happen anymore. A lot of people have unsubscribed from NPD, for example. But I don't know the exact units, but it seems that PlayStation 5 and Switch were extremely close in December in terms of percentage. But I still didn't expect it. I'll be honest with you. It really shows the longevity of Switch. I really thought PS5 was going to come ahead. It was a huge month for PS5. As we know, it was the best. It was the best month for PlayStation 5 since launch. So it shows you how strong Switch was. For it to still, this late in the cycle, beat the best PlayStation 5 month since that console has come out, very impressive. Very impressed by Nintendo Switch sales. But that was the only real big surprise to me. Everything else was pretty much as expected. But yeah, that one. I really thought PS5 would come out on top. Let me make sure I haven't missed any super chats. I think one might have dropped. People like the polls. Cool. Yep, Safety Recall likes the polls. Ken B likes the polls. JCat likes the polls. Great to see you, JCat. People like them. Cool. We'll keep doing the polls because you guys seem to like them. They're interactive. They're fun. I like it. All right. Highlander001 did drop a 5 super chat. That's like your 4th one or whatever. Thank you so much, Highlander. I heard rumors Hellblade 2 may get a November release. Have you heard anything? I did hear this year. Yeah. How come you're not a guest in other YouTube channels? No offers. So 2 things. First of all, have I heard that Hellblade 2 is this year? Yes. In fact, I think I commented on that last week, I think. But I don't know that for sure. I always am careful whenever I share with you guys things I hear here. Unless I'm like extremely like 1,000,000% confident. Like I literally know it for a fact. I hear a ton of rumors, guys. Anytime you have someone with, and I'm not huge or anything, but anyone with over 60,000 followers on Twitter is going to hear a lot of rumors. That's just the reality. But I have heard it's this year, but I don't know that for sure. So that could not be a lock. Now, if it's November, that I don't know. I just did hear it was late this year. So I'm assuming that means September, October, November, somewhere around there. But we'll see. Like I said, Highlander, don't run to the bank with that. But have I heard Hellblade 2 is releasing this year, later in the year? That is what I heard, but I don't know that for sure. And in terms of how come I'm not a guest on other YouTube channels, I do get some offers. I've been on, I was on XCast for Kind of Funny, which was super cool. I've been on the Iron Lords podcast a couple times, so it's been a very long time. I've been on Xbox Chatter Days with Miles a few times. I will tell you, less people reach out to me than you would think. I don't have a ton of who I would consider friends in the media side, and that probably plays a part on it. A lot of these people are like buddies. Like a lot of them. So they're always inviting their friends onto their podcasts. I'm not friends with very many media people. I would say I have connections with a lot of them, and I occasionally talk to them, but I don't have many that are like my friends, where they would just be regularly asking me on their podcast. So I think that's probably part of it. A lot of people just probably don't know me that well. A lot of them have really big channels, so they're probably not watching my content, and they really only see tweets. And I don't know. You'd have to ask some of those channels. I'm sure if people demanded me on, they would maybe ask. That's probably part of it too. They have no demand. No one's asking them to put me on their podcast. So if you want to see me on some big podcasts, I guess just hit them up and be like, put Benji on this podcast. But the other part of it too, Highlander, is I miss a lot of requests for podcasts. As everyone knows, I'm notoriously the worst human being on planet Earth to check DMs, including I've missed some very important giant DMs from very important industry people before. Don't be like me, guys. Check your DMs. That's probably part of it too. A lot of times I'll see something like, this isn't an exaggeration, like 4 months later, and someone will be like, have asked me on their podcast. I'm like, ooh. That was like 4 months ago. So it's all those combinations. A, I'm terrible about checking DMs. B, I'm not, I would say, friends with very many of these people. And C, probably just no demand, and they don't watch my content. You know, I'm not a huge YouTuber. I'm pretty well known on Twitter, but on YouTube I have, less than 4,000 subs. And a lot of these people are, like, that's where they're most known, is YouTube. They have like hundreds of thousands of subs. I'm like the opposite. I'm like the reverse of what most YouTubers are. Most people that are YouTubers, their YouTube is way bigger than their Twitter. I'm like the complete inverse. My Twitter is more than 10 times the size of my YouTube. It's over 10 times the size of my YouTube. In fact, I'm over 60,000 and I'm at 3,000 here, so it's actually almost 20 times. That's crazy. My Twitter is almost 20 times bigger than my YouTube is. Benji here with a 5 super chat. Yeah, Benji with a 5. Benji, 3 full GTA games on PS2, 2 big GTA/2 DLCs on 360 PS3, 4 Gears on 360, yearly Assassin's Creed, 2 Elder Scrolls, 2 Fallouts on 360. Those days gone for good. Yeah, those are gone. That's back to what we were talking about with dev cycles. Look what you're talking about. Look at how much more successful and healthy you can make gaming whenever you can put stuff out. That's just the reality, dude. These dev cycles have hurt AAA so bad it's unbelievable. Not that doesn't mean that AAA can't be super successful and these companies can't still make a ton of money, because look at them. A lot of them are making record profit and record revenue and stuff. But could this industry be spectacularly more healthy if devs were getting games out regularly in 3 to 4 years? Oh, yeah, dude. If most games, and again, we're just saying most, not every one. If most big AAA games could be made in 3 to 4 years, gaming would be so much healthier. It wouldn't even be close, guys. It wouldn't even be close. If 3 to 4 years per game was the regular instead of the exception, dude, this industry is so much healthier. It's so much healthier. Nowadays, like when you're starting a new project from the ground up, you're talking at least 5 years, at least. Maybe for a sequel it can be out faster, but you're talking at least 5 years if you're just starting a brand new project, and a lot of those are much longer. Yeah, if it was 3 to 4 years, it would be a completely different situation. This industry would look completely different in terms of health. My hope is that AI and engine improvements can help that, but you never know. I don't know. I'm not a master developer or anything like that. You would have to talk to somebody who's super technical savvy to tell you if that's possible. But my hope is that the combination of AI, maybe being able to help with some elements of game development and engine breakthroughs, just making it much, much easier to make stuff. Those are the two things, hopefully, that change it, but I don't know. Reverse World with a 2 super chat. Opinion, do you think Banjo is being made? I don't know about Banjo. There's always rumors about Banjo floating around that a new Banjo game's coming, but I don't know. Reverse World, I'll be honest with you, I got no idea. So you're talking about opinion, because I don't know the answer to this. My opinion right now is no, unless it is a non-AAA game. So if they have like a studio doing like an AA size project, double A, maybe. I don't believe there is a AAA Banjo currently in development. I just don't believe that because I don't know who would be making it that would have the resources available right now to make a AAA Banjo game. I just don't know which studio would really be doing that. So unless it's a double A, like it's a smaller size project, which actually probably would be the best way to bring Banjo back, to be honest with you. If it's a huge hit, then maybe make a bigger AAA one. But that's my opinion. AAA Banjo, no. Double A, maybe. All right, Super Chats are cleared again. Thanks so much, guys. We still got some time, so don't worry. I know there's a ton of free questions I haven't gotten to yet, but I'm still going to go for another 20, 30 minutes, something like that. Blazing Flame, hello Benji, hope you're doing good. Do you think Nintendo's next console will be portable? Yes. I think it's going to literally just be a Switch 2. And do you think it will be backwards compatible with the Switch? Now, this is the big question. Also, when do you think OG Switch support ends? So my thoughts on Switch 2, I believe that yes, it's essentially going to be Switch 2. Maybe they're going to do something that's a little weird or something because Nintendo likes to always try something different with every platform they have. But Switch 1 was so successful, and you got to remember, they completely changed their team development structure around. It used to be before, if you were developing for handheld Nintendo or you were developing for console Nintendo, they were like completely different things because they were literally different pieces of hardware, right? You had some dev teams that were making a 3DS game, completely different piece of hardware than if they were making a Wii U game or a GameCube or a Wii or whatever, back to DS. However long they've been doing both, it was like you had to do a completely separate thing. Now they've streamlined it all into one process. I don't see them going away from that. So I do think it's definitely going to be portable. I think it's literally going to be a Switch 2. It's going to be just like the Switch you have now. But again, maybe with a weird new wrinkle. It's Nintendo, so you can't put something new in there past them. But will it be like it is now where you can dock whatever this thing is or you can pick it up and take it with you? Yes, I think that's a guarantee. It's too successful of a model for them. Now, the big question to me about Switch 2 is it backwards compatible? There was some rumblings, and we don't even know how to take Switch hardware rumors because they've been going on for the last 2 or 3 years. To varying degrees of true or untrue. There was some rumblings at one point that maybe it's not going to be backwards compatible. I'll say it needs to be. So many people buy digital now, particularly even on Nintendo. It used to be you could always say Nintendo was the big exception to the industry where they were barely doing any digital sales. It was so physical heavy, even as Xbox and PlayStation started to move away from that. And now, is Nintendo's digital share on their first party games still lower than Xbox and PlayStation? Sure. But a lot of people on Nintendo now buy digital, a lot. And I think you need to have those people be able to carry all these digital games they're buying forward. I do think that's really necessary. So hopefully. But we'll have to see. And in terms of OG support when it ends, my thought has been from first party, probably 2 years after the console launches. I think they'll still support Switch 1 for at minimum 12 months, probably closer to 18 to 24 months though. Third parties, it could go even longer, especially from Japan. Not so much from Western first party or Western third party devs, but on the Japanese side, because Switch has been so dominant in Japan, a lot of these JRPGs and stuff, they'll want to support Switch 1 for a long time because the install base. So my thought on first party is minimum of 1 year, but probably actually closer to 18 to 24 months, something like that. Any super chats? Nope. I don't think. Nope. All right, we're good. The Deadly 8. There were a few AAA game announcements at VGAs. Do you think we will see many AAA announcements at E3 2023/Summer Game Fest VGA 23? Is the industry slowing down on announcements for a while? No, we'll see a lot, Deadly 8. A lot. Sony has almost nothing announced. You know, we're going to get a lot from Sony here soon. They have literally almost no games announced. Right now, for PlayStation, besides VR, I believe the only announced game is Spider-Man and Wolverine. So that's it. And also Naughty Dog's multiplayer game, but it's not... it's announced, but they've literally never shown it. So that's like pretty darn close to being unannounced. Like, yes, we know it exists. They've literally never shown the game. So that might as well, when they finally show it, might as well be a new announcement. Because all we know is, hey, we're making a multiplayer Last of Us game. We don't know anything else about this thing. So Sony alone is going to announce a lot this year because they have to. They have nothing announced. They got like a completely clean slate. Now that Santa Monica has a game out, they have nothing announced. Not that I'm telling you they're going to announce a new game this year, but I'm outlining what's going on at Sony. You have no game announced from Santa Monica coming up. You got no game announced from Guerrilla coming up besides VR and an expansion. But again, I'm not expecting a new announcement from them. I'm just painting a picture. You've got no game announced from Sucker Punch. You've got no game announced from Sony Bend. You've got no game announced from Pixel Opus. You've got no game announced from Naughty Dog besides a nebulous multiplayer game. Like nothing. They got nothing announced. The only thing that's announced that like has actually even been shown somewhat, and they've barely shown, is Spider-Man and Wolverine. And those were both just nebulous trailers. So Sony alone, you're getting a heavy release slate announcement this year because they have to. They got nothing on the board. Xbox, I don't think you're going to get a ton of big announcements from this year because they announced so many of their games already and they've barely shown anything. So I think you will get some new Xbox announcements this year, but not like an insane number. A few. Nintendo has to announce a bunch. They literally have like, besides Fire Emblem, which is about to come out, they've got like Pikmin, and which they've barely shown, and Zelda. They got to announce more stuff than that. There's like nothing in it. I believe currently there's not a single first-party game announced coming out from Nintendo after Zelda. So you know what I'm saying? Like, Deadly, you're going to get a lot of announcements this year. Yeah, a lot. A lot of big stuff did get announced, but there's a ton of studios that haven't announced anything yet either. And I believe you're going to get Grand Theft Auto announced this year. I'm very confident in it. Now, it releasing this year, I'm less confident, but I would put the odds as high as 95% that Grand Theft Auto 6 is announced this year. Yeah, I would put it that high. I will be utterly shocked if we end 2023 with no Grand Theft Auto announcement. So there's some big stuff coming, for sure. Marvel Fanatic. Miles Morales sold extremely well. Yeah, fantastic. Do you think it is possible that we will get Miles Morales 2, or do you think they will do a spinoff with other popular characters like Venom? What I would love to see, Marvel Fanatic, is Spider-Gwen, because we know now that Miles is going to play a big part in Spider-Man 2. I think that would be a very fun thing for them to do, is to introduce a Spider-Gwen game. Like, you see people always tweeting about that, like cool Photoshopped box arts and stuff. I would love to see a Spider-Gwen game. How fun would that be? First of all, her suit is sick. Like, she just looks awesome. It would give you a playable female Spider-Man character, because right now you just have Miles and Peter, which is awesome. I love them both. But it seems that, you know, they're going to be the focus of Spider-Man 2. So how much fun would it be to have a Spider-Gwen game? Like, to do the next, like, in-between game? I would love to see Spider-Gwen. So we'll see, but that would be my hope, Marvel. If you're just saying, Benji, you get anything you want. You get Miles Morales 2 after Spidey, or you can get a Spider-Gwen game. I would go Spider-Gwen. Now, if Miles wasn't in Spider-Man 2 was clearly a playable character, essentially, they're showing you. Now, how that's going to work, I don't know. Some people are theorizing, is it going to be co-op, where one person can play Peter, one can play Miles? I'm leaning a bit more against that. I think it'll probably be mission specific. Like some missions you're going to be playing as Peter and some missions you're going to be playing as Miles. That's how I guess they're going to do it. But since we're getting Miles as such a big part of Spider-Man 2, I'd prefer to see Spider-Gwen over a Miles Morales sequel. But don't get me wrong, I'd love to see Miles Morales too. So either one. But I'd lean more towards Spider-Gwen. That would be awesome. That would be so cool. And I think it'd go over really well. I think people would love that. Yoda Soda. Hey there, Benji. Do you think there's a fundamental problem with Xbox Studios management? Ooh, this hurts me to say, but I do think they're having some issues. Some devs there take more than 6+ years without new releases like Compulsion, Rare, etc. How should they fix this? It's a problem. Do you think it is starting to show that Xbox Game Studios have too many developers and not many games ready to show a release? Do you think they should stop acquisitions and focus on what they have? Yes, Yoda Soda. Yes. So there are so many Xbox studios right now, and you got to think the growth rate was crazy. Whenever you look at how small, to be honest, Xbox Game Studios was, it was smaller than PlayStation by a lot. And now you see how massive it is. That's never going to be an easy transition. Like you're taking on thousands of people, and you're not taking on thousands of people in one place. These studios are scattered all across the world. Now, whenever you say there's do I think there's a management issue? I actually do believe so. But I don't think that means Phil Spencer's the management. Phil Spencer can only be so many places at once. You know what I mean? You have all these studios scattered all across the world. You have all of these devs. There's only so much Phil can do per day. There's only so much that Matt Booty can do per day. Like, whenever you have things this spread out and this many studios and this many people, it ain't going to be easy. So I do believe that there is actually a bit of a management issue right now at Xbox. And I'm not the only one saying that. You're seeing developers tweet that out. Now, I think the number one mission from Phil and Matt Booty and Aaron right now in regards to the teams they have is getting that management chain extremely strong, because you need great leadership at these studios whenever you have this many. Because like I said, Phil can't be everywhere at once. He can't be at Ninja Theory, and then at the same time at Playground, and then at the same time at Bethesda Game Studios, and then at the same time at Turn 10. Like, it's just not possible. So I think that Matt Booty and Phil and the things they need to be focusing on right now is they got to get that management chain at every one of these studios. You got to get that locked in so strong, because a lot of these are going to have to be really self-run still. Of course, Phil is going to have to come in here and step in sometimes, make some decisions, etc., etc. But so many of these teams, whenever you have this many, this spread out, they're not going to get as hands-on attention as if you have like 5 or 6 studios. So yeah, Yoda Soda, they got to get that locked in. If I was them, that would be a huge focus right now, is making sure you have the absolute premium best top class management chains at every one of these studios, because they're going to need it. I agree. All right, Casual Gamer, Gotham Knights underperformed. Do we know that? I haven't heard WB say that. In fact, it's looked pretty good on MPD, to be honest. And shockingly so. Guys, Gotham Knights in its 3rd month. Now, I know worldwide, I'm going to say less so. But guys, in its 3rd month, I'm actually kind of surprised how solid Gotham Knights is doing, to be honest with you. Because I wouldn't put its US performance as underperformed. I don't agree with that, Casual Gamer. Now, globally is a different question. It doesn't seem to have done near as well in Europe, for example. But this game in its 3rd month... Let me see. Oh, wait. I was thinking of the PlayStation charts. It was still top 20 though in the US in December. But it was actually still top 10 on PlayStation 5 in the charts. So, I'll be honest, I don't think its US performance is terrible. I'm trying to see something. And for the year, Gotham Knights was number 17. For the best-selling games of the year. It was in the top 20 best-selling games of the year, and it didn't come out until October. So I actually think his U.S. performance is fairly okay. Now, its overseas performance does look not great, I'll be honest with you. But I don't know if we can say that it underperformed in the US at least. Because I don't think anyone expected this to sell at the level of like what Arkham Knight did. There's no way that this game was going to sell like that. So to still be in the top 20 for the year, and it didn't come out until October, pretty decent, I think, actually, for US performance. Now, Suicide Squad is getting panned for the leaked menu screen. If Suicide Squad is also a dud, are WB Games doomed? No, because Hogwarts is tracking Guys, I can't even put into words how big Hogwarts Legacy is tracking. It's freaking kind of melting my brain how big this game might launch. And Lego Skywalker Saga did massive numbers. Not only was it the best-selling Lego game, we found that out a long time ago, the fastest-selling one for the year. This finished number 5 for the entire... A Lego game was in the top 5 best-selling games for all of 2022. So no, WB's actually had some enormous successes. Skywalker Saga was an enormous success. Hogwarts Legacy, I'm telling you right now, is going to have a giga-gargantuan launch. So no, what I will say, casual gamers, the DC side, though, does seem to be in a little bit of trouble, which goes for their movies, too. WB's got to really tighten up their DC projects, whether it's movies, whether it's shows, whether it's games. Yeah, I have a feeling Suicide Squad might sell really bad. And I hate to say that, but I just don't know. I think sometimes a studio needs to know what people want from them. You know, I think that's one thing that some of these studios at times might run into that's an issue, and I think it usually comes down from management. But I think Rocksteady probably should have been aware that, like, what people want from Rocksteady isn't the next awesome single-player epic DC game. Like, that's what people wanted. You know, you can't always just pivot to something completely different and it's going to work. You know what I mean? Like, people come to associate studios with certain things. Now, it doesn't mean you can't experiment. Like we're seeing what Naughty Dog's going to do with this Last of Us multiplayer game. I'm not saying don't experiment with multiplayer, but I still think, and I've been saying this for a while, one of the biggest fumbles I've seen in the entire history of the video game industry, in my opinion, was Rocksteady killing the Gotham series and taking 8 years to make a multiplayer co-op Suicide Squad game. I think that will go down as one of the biggest mistakes ever made in the history of video games in terms of an individual studio. Now, I could be wrong. Suicide Squad could come out and be the biggest thing that you've ever seen in your entire life and sell 1 billion copies. I am extraordinarily doubtful of that. And even if it is a mild success, it still does not justify an 8-year development cycle to make this game and killing what was an enormous franchise in the Batman Arkham games. What I think should have probably happened, I've talked about this before, and again, never take this as Benji says he knows better than anyone, because I don't. I say this all the time. I'm a random retail worker. I don't run these companies. These people all know things way better than I do. But if you're just getting my take on what I would have done if I was at WB and I was talking to Rocksteady, and Rocksteady wanted to make something different, they were done with Batman, we want to do something different, because that supposedly is what happened. Rocksteady didn't want to do Batman anymore. I would have said, you guys can do something different. We also can't just kill this enormously massive Batman franchise for no reason. Like, we can't just, like, literally just put it out to pasture for no reason when it's still a ginormous commercial success. It's just a crazy decision to make. So if I was at WB, I'd say, dude, you guys can start doing something different. Put that in pre-production. Have a smaller team in pre-production on that, and we need some of you to make the next Batman game. Now, if some of the staff are that against it, they refuse to work on Batman, have some of them on that pre-production small core group. And for people that are fine with still making Batman, put a lot of the studio on Batman. And you can just have a small strike team spinning up ideas on what this next game could be. And you can still get a Batman game out the door in the next 4 years or whatever and sell a ton of copies. And then maybe at that point, you're ready to go full production in this next game. Instead, they literally just kill Batman's all of these sales for 8 years. And they take 8 years to make a Suicide Squad game that there is no guarantee is going to sell. It's just a crazy gambling decision. And, you know, maybe it pays off for them, but it's not business savvy in my opinion. It ain't a business savvy decision. It's a massive gamble. So we'll see, but Yeah, I ain't feeling good about what happened here with Suicide Squad. And you guys know I'm always rooting for games to be successful. I hope Suicide Squad sells 20 million copies and gets a 90 Metacritic. I just also have to be realistic. I think some of the decisions that were made there were crazy from a business sense. From a business sense, it's like you look at that on paper and you're like, what in the world? How does this math work out in our favor? You know what I mean? So it's pretty crazy. Now, obviously, I don't think they expected Suicide Squad to take 8 years to make. So that was also part of the problem. Back to what we've been talking about, guys, with dev cycles. It all ties together. I'm sure Rocksteady didn't think it's going to take us 8 years to get our next game out, but when you're gambling, you got to be careful. Michael, I would answer this, but it ties into what we were saying. Other than Spider-Man 2, Sony's been quiet on announcing any other non-VR first-party titles. Yep, exactly. Do you think we'll get at least one or two more AAA first-party non-VR titles from Sony this year? Oh, releasing? I'd say one. I would say one big one. I hate to say it, I think this is going to be a pretty light year for PlayStation first-party studios. I think a lot of them just aren't going to be ready until starting next year. Sony's going to sell some big exclusives because they have stuff like Final Fantasy 16 to help fill the gap. But Michael, I do think you see a bunch of announcements this year from Sony. But in terms of like big AAA, those flagship Sony announcements that you expect, like in terms of releasing, I think you'll get one other besides Spider-Man 2. What that'll be, I have no idea. But I wouldn't expect really more than that. I think they would have had more announced if there was more coming this year. And the fact that they haven't even announced, more AAA first-party games for this year probably means best case scenario, you get one. Best case scenario, you get one more besides Spider-Man. But I think they'll have a great year in 2023. Or 2024, sorry. I think by then you'll start to have more of these games coming out, but I don't think Ben's ready to release their new IP this year. I don't know that Ghost of Tsushima's sequel will be ready for this year, because that's obviously what Sucker Punch is up to. I don't know that Naughty Dog will have anything ready for this year, besides maybe the multiplayer game, but some of the stuff they've hinted at kind of sounds like it might not even be this year, because they said they'll have more info. They didn't even say release. They said more info later this year. So I wouldn't even put that as a lock. So best case scenario, I think you get one more. Did I miss any super chats? As we're getting close to the end. Highlander with a 2 super chat. That's like your 5th, dude. That's very generous. What reboots would you make for the consoles? Oh, what franchise reboots? All right, let's do one for each. I would say Fable, but that's already being done by Xbox. Who would I want to see Xbox reboot? That's been on... Perfect Dark's another one you could point to, but that's being rebooted. I think if they're going to do a reboot, probably maybe a family-friendly sort of title. So maybe something like Banjo or Viva Pinata, if we're talking reboots. Because I don't think Gears needs a reboot. I think Gears 4 and 5 are pretty good games, to be honest with you. So I think they're fine with Gears 6. Obviously, they'll want to do some stuff to shake up the formula and stuff, but I don't think that franchise needs one. I think Halo kind of needs one. I don't think that... Fable's already getting one. Perfect Dark's already getting one. Lost Odyssey would be amazing. That would be a few. For Xbox, I'd love to see Lost Odyssey come back. I'd love to see a Banjo, a Viva Pinata, or Halo. Those are probably the ones I lean towards Xbox. PlayStation, a reboot. Love to see Sly Cooper, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'd love to see Jack and Daxter, but I don't think that's going to happen. It appears Twisted Metal is getting a reboot. Siphon Filter would be cool, but I don't think that'll happen. Killzone. I'd say Killzone for Sony. I'd love to see Killzone come back. I think Killzone had a very cool universe. I don't think that the Killzone games were all amazing, but I think Killzone has a very awesome universe and a very distinct universe. Killzone or Resistance. Those would be my two highest for Sony. They don't have any big flagship first-party shooters currently. There's some that they're working with coming up, like from Deviation. But one of those. I would actually make that decision. Like if I was at Sony, I'd bring one of them back. I don't think you bring them both back, so I don't know which one they would go with in the end. But I would bring either Resistance or Killzone back. For me, I would choose Killzone because I just think Killzone is very distinct and very cool. And I think Guerrilla could make a way more sick Killzone game nowadays. I think they've just gotten like... Guerrilla has always been a talented developer, but I feel like they've really upped their game. I think a new Killzone could be sick. Nintendo... What's a dormant Nintendo franchise? Oh, easy. F-Zero. Bring back F-Zero. I would say Metroid, but we already know Metroid Prime's coming back. So F-Zero. I'd go F-Zero for Nintendo. All right. And that's for those. Thank you so much, man. All right, a few more, and then we're going to bounce. I'm going to go for about 5 or 10 minutes, so we're here towards the end, guys. Thanks for a great turnout. I'm going to blast out 2 or 3 more questions. AM Blue Star, EXSF, thoughts on Sonic Frontiers legs, particularly for the US MPDs? Looking great. Yeah, I'm impressed, honestly. Probably the biggest sales surprise this year outside Elden Ring. It's the biggest Sega game in forever. Yeah, Sonic Frontiers is looking great. Looking like we're going to see the best-selling 3D Sonic ever. It's holding very well. For those of you that didn't see it, in December NPD, Sonic Frontiers in its second month was number 6. That's great for December, guys, because December's a high-volume month. So, looking good. I'm playing through Sonic Frontiers right now. That's the game I'm currently playing. It's my first 3D Sonic, and I'm having a ton of fun. I'll be honest, it does still have some major jank. I've always heard that these 3D Sonic games are super janky. I can tell you even playing it right now, and I'm actually really enjoying it. I think it's a good game. It does still have some jank. There are times where the camera, I think, is very frustrating. There are times that the controls, I think, are very frustrating. But as a whole, I really do like it. I think they have a great formula. If they polish things up and improve the tech side, Sonic Frontiers 2, I think, could just be awesome. I think it could be an awesome game. So yeah, I'm very impressed with Sonic Frontiers. Probably going to be the best 3D Sonic, best-selling 3D Sonic game ever. Sega themselves have already said that it is like the foundation for future Sonic games. So in other words, expect the next Sonic game to be a sequel to Frontiers. And if they polish things up, tighten things up, I think it could be a great game. But even the first one, it's good. I'm liking it. Brian the Savior, Benji, why do you think WB have such an aversion to Superman in general? We haven't had a Supe movie in 10 plus years, and Rocksteady have wasted their last 8 years making an effing Suicide Squad game. Baffling. All right, well, we're on the same page with Suicide Squad. I hope this game's good, but I have my worries about it. So we are on the same page with that. I would say the main reason you haven't seen one in a game is it's very hard to pull off. I think a successful Superman game can probably be done now. I think the technology has finally got there, like with Unreal Engine 5 and stuff. I don't know if you've seen some of the demo stuff that people are making for Superman type things where you can load in LODs and stuff so fast with Unreal Engine 5 now. I think you could finally do it. I think you could finally make a truly good Superman game. So hopefully that's coming. I think we're finally at that point where you can really make it work. And in terms of a movie, that's next up. We already know James Gunn's writing the script, and that's what's kicking off the future of the DC movie. So it does seem, Brian, they're finally getting back around to Superman, at least in the movies. Games, I think it's just that. I think it's been hard to make it work on a technical level and be good, because if you're flying around at ultra high speed, which you kind of have to do for Superman in a city, you know what I mean? It ain't going to feel like a Superman game if you're flying real slow, or you're flying around just like an empty open world. Like for Superman to feel great, like the Superman you want to be flying around super fast through a big giant city, not swinging like Spidey is, which he goes decently fast, but we want to be full on flying through the city. I think Unreal Engine 5, we're finally really there where you can do it. Batman Forever, Howdy Cowboy. Rockstar takes extremely long to develop games. Oh, yeah. Do you think they will release another new game besides GTA 6 by the end of this generation like Red Dead 3? I can tell you that Take-Two and 2K want them to. It has actually been a big focus to try and get more Rockstar games out. I can tell you that for sure. I know that literally for a fact, that they are trying to figure out a way to get Rockstar games out faster. Again, though, guys, look at how much of these topics are coming back to dev cycles. It's a problem. I don't know how long I got to preach it, but it's a problem. I think you will. I think you'll get one more game besides GTA 6 by the end of this gen, because I think GTA 6 is next year. I think it'll launch 2024. So I think late in the cycle, maybe a cross-gen game even. But I do think these consoles will see one other Rockstar game hit them besides GTA 6. Not more than that, though. Not more than that. And it'll be the end of the gen, possibly even cross-gen. Yep, Blazing Flame, I answered that about Switch. Jason Benjamin, sup, Benji boy. This generation will last at least 8 to 9 years. I agree. Don't you think a mid-gen refresh/upgrade is necessary to keep up with the tech, meaning PS5 Pro, or do you think OG PS5 can last 8 years? My thought on this, Jason, has just been from the beginning that I believe on a consumer and tech standpoint, mid-gen console refreshes absolutely make sense. My stance has always been, though, I literally just don't know if they can be financially possible. Because these consoles right now are already $500+, even more, right, in some places. And they're not going down in price. There's like nothing on the horizon that looks like there's going to remotely be a price cut on Series X or PS5. Nothing. There ain't no indication we're going to see that for years. So, Jason, to me, it all depends. If Sony and Microsoft can find a way to cost effectively get out a mid-gen refresh, let's say in 2025, right? If this gen's going to really go to 2028 or 2029, if they could do that, like it's financially possible. Hey, we can get a machine on the market that's more powerful and it ain't going to cost us an insane amount of money to sell it or make it. I think it happens. However, I just have my doubts with the way that the current economy and chips and all of this stuff is shaking out. I just don't know if it's doable. So, Jason, we'll have to see. I'm kind of torn on it. I think it makes sense, but I don't know if they financially can. Joseph X1, Benji, it is crazy to see that Battlefield 2042, a game that was launched first, had a premium price, and have mostly negative reviews, has more than 2 to 3 times the player base than Halo Infinite on Steam. Do you think the 10-year plan for Halo Infinite is still held up? Well, Joseph, one thing you have to remember is that it's the complete opposite on consoles. So Halo just never took off on PC. I think that's one learning lesson that 343 is going to have. And Microsoft, that doesn't mean that Halo can't do okay on PC if it was run better, right? Like if this game had to actually have had a post-launch plan. But let's also compare, Joseph, what's going on between Battlefield and Halo on console, because it's literally the complete opposite. So if we go to Xbox's most played games right now on console, currently, not that Halo's in a great place, but currently Halo is at 4, 8, 12, 16. Oh, it's actually better than I thought. In the US, 4, 8, 12, 16. Halo is at number 20. So the number 20 most played game on Xbox Live right now. So it's in your top 20. Battlefield is not in the top 50. So Battlefield 2042 is not even in the top 50 most played games. Let me make sure I'm not missing it, but I am pretty sure it is not even in the top 50. It is not. It is not in the top 50 most played games. So on console, Halo is significantly outperforming Battlefield. So, and that's with Halo getting no content. So it's a bit interesting. I think the main learning lesson here isn't that Battlefield is actually doing any better than Halo because it's doing really bad on console. This game's in Game Pass, by the way. Battlefield 2042 is in Game Pass, and it's not even in the top 50 most played games on the system in the US, which the US is the main market for Xbox, and Battlefield's not even in the top 50. So I wouldn't say that Battlefield's doing better than Halo. I would say both are struggling. And it's just that Halo has, like, apparently just people on PC just straight up won't play Halo. And then on console, Battlefield just has no attention at all. I mean, that's a significant gap. Halo's at number 20 and Battlefield's not even top 50. Darcy, and in regards to, will I think the 10-year plan hold up, that I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Halo Infinite, to be honest with you. I got no idea. Darcy, oh, fun question, just something different than gaming. What's up, Benji? What's your favorite cheat snack? Well, Darcy, my weakness is not so much sweets. You know, don't be wrong, I like some chocolate. But I'm not one of these people that has a massive sweet tooth. Darcy, my weakness is like greasy deliciousness. Pizza, I love pizza. Pizza's really dangerous for me. I mean, I love pizza. I could eat pizza every single day if I let myself. So I'd put pizza as number one. If I go sweets, like if we're talking a cheat snack, like not a meal, because you're saying a snack, chocolate is a bit of a weakness. Like I just said, I don't have a major sweet tooth, like sugary, but chocolate. Oh, man, you put like a brownie, like a chocolate brownie in front of me, it's dangerous. You put a chocolate cake in front of me, it's dangerous. You just put chocolate in front of me, and I do crave chocolate. If it's some sort of like fruity, sweet candy type thing, honestly, I won't even really be tempted. But if you put some sort of chocolate baked good in front of me, that would be up there, Darcy. Absolutely. I love chocolate. Avraj Pada, 343 layoffs sound extensive. Do you think 343 is going to offload future campaigns to co-development? That's fun. We just talked about that, Avraj. I don't know. It's a great question. I don't have a great question for the future of Halo. I really don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you, but from you guys' opinion, we still got that poll going now. The poll's gotten over 100 votes now, and it's still less than 10% of you want a sequel to Infinite from 343, and still 61%. The highest one is you guys want a different studio making the game. So that's pretty shocking. All right, guys, I think I probably got to wrap it up. This has been a long stream. I've had a lot of fun, but I mean, there's still so many good questions. I'd love to go. I just don't know if you guys have any interest in the stream still going. It's been a long stream. You know what I mean? Do you guys still want to see me talk for a whole lot longer? I'll still do a couple more because chat was really big today, like in terms of number of questions. I understand if people get bored and start bouncing, but I'll do just a couple more. Couple, not a lot, guys. A couple more. Dangerman 1337 with a 2 super chat. Thank you so much, Dangerman. Games as a service games need to have more content day one. Dangerman, absolutely. If you're going to have a games as a service title, you need to have a bunch of it at launch, or if it's not going to be like extremely feature rich right at launch, you at least need very fast content hitting afterwards. You know, it's one thing I'll give Overwatch 2. You know, people are going to have their mixed opinions about Overwatch 2. Going free to play. Some people like it. Some people hate it. I can tell you guys, Overwatch 2 is doing great for a free to play game. This game on Xbox, which isn't its main platform, guys. Its main platform's PC. This game has been out for 4 months now. It's still in the top 10. Right now, it's number 10. It's still in the top 10 most played games on Xbox 4 months after launch. I gotta imagine that Blizzard and Activision are pretty happy with how Overwatch 2 is doing. And one reason why Overwatch 2 is having this staying power is they've been very good about post-launch support. These seasons are nice and quick. They're already almost on season 3, I think they said the seasons are like 9 weeks, so it's boom, boom, boom. You're getting a battle pass every season. They've been releasing new maps. They've had new events. You've been getting new heroes. It's literally the opposite of Halo Infinite, where Halo Infinite came out and there was like no content for 6 months. Overwatch 2 is being able to keep this staying power because it's bam, bam, bam. If you like Overwatch, every 9 weeks you're getting a new battle pass to work through, which I know not everyone loves battle passes. I think it depends on a game, but on a free-to-play shooter, I'm honestly okay with battle passes. But you're going to get that to work through. You're getting new maps. They've released several new maps already. You're getting new heroes. They already had a new hero, new tank just dropped last season. They said there's 2 more support characters right around the corner. So it's like, it's that, Danger Man. If you're going to be a games as a service, you either need a ton of content day one, if it's going to be like a little bit of a gap, that way people have time to work through it, or you got to have boom, 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 regular drops. We're getting regular content just constantly out the window. You can't do what Halo did. You can't be like, here's Halo Infinite, and now for 6 months, you're just going to sit on that content. Like, that ain't going to work. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Danger Man, you're right. You're right. I really appreciate how many people actually turn out to these chats, by the way, and watch these every week. I really appreciate it. I'm not a huge YouTuber, guys, by any means, but it blows my mind that there's still hundreds of people that watch this chat every single week. You know what I mean? I appreciate it. It means a lot to me. I don't need to be a huge YouTuber. Just the fact I get this many freaking good questions and interactions and stuff every week blows my mind. Just like 2 or 3 more, though. I really am this time. It's like 2 or 3 more. Holy cow, I just saw this in chat. Tim Dog said 343 will lose up to 140 people. If that's true, that is nuts. That is nuts. Now, I don't know if Tim Dog has accurate information on this. Tim Dog's always been very nice to me, but I don't know his source on this. But if that's accurate, if 343 is really going to lose 140 people, guys, that is an enormous blow and an enormous downsizing. And that doesn't honestly shock me too much based off how many devs are posting that they were laid off from 343. Guys, this is crazy. Wow, thoughts to 343, guys. You know, we talked about this on like how it's a bit of a, you know, we're trying to be nice here, but we have to be honest, and that 343 has just not shepherded this franchise well. And that's still heartbreaking to see that many people are going to lose their jobs, man. It's 140 people, if that's accurate. Guy Bam the fourth in here just posted 30 environment artists fired from 343 as well. Wow, guys. If these numbers are true, we're seeing a complete change in 343. Really sad to see so many people lose their jobs. Crazy. Crazy. It's really sad to see, man. I'm very curious what's going to happen with the future of Halo. This is very interesting. Creative Monster says The Last of Us on HBO first episode was really good. I agree. It blew me away. I thought it was a 10 out of 10 legitimately. I legitimately was blown away how good that episode was. And the crazy thing is that most reviewers that got the full season, because some of these people got the full season to review, a lot of them say the first episode's the worst episode. That's crazy to me. If that is true, that episode 1 is the worst of the bunch. You even saw Craig Mazin himself said he thinks the series gets better the further it goes. If that is true, I don't know. I haven't seen the rest of the season. If it is true that the first episode is the worst one, considering how incredibly well that episode went over, guys, this show's going to be a juggernaut. If episodes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 don't just keep the quality of episode 1 but improve on it, I'm telling you guys, even outside of gaming circles, this show's going to be a mega hit for HBO, if that's true. Because that's what a lot said. I saw multiple reviewers say, dude, if you like the first episode, like, that's the worst of the bunch. That's crazy to me if that's true. Venom Harness, hope you're having a nice day. Do you think there's a chance Ubisoft could file for bankruptcy or sell in parts? Also, could THQ Nordic or Embracer file for bankruptcy too, or are they too big? My thoughts on Ubisoft are the same as they were last week. I think the most likely situation for Ubisoft is at the end of the day, they pull themselves through on the other side of this, not like easily. I still think they'll probably have a lot of layoffs too, to be honest with you. And again, I hate to say this, but I think a lot of people from Ubisoft are going to be fired soon. And if you just ask me the most likely scenario, I would say at the end of the day, Ubisoft has a lot of issues. They lose some people. Their share price continues to take a hit, but eventually they come out on the other side of this. I think Assassin's Creed Mirage is probably going to sell pretty well. I think Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, if it's good, is going to sell well. I think Star Wars from Massive Entertainment is going to sell well. So I think that they can still turn things around, but they are no doubt in trouble. That's not underplaying what's currently happening. Right now, here where we're sitting today, Ubisoft's in a lot of trouble. But I still think the most likely scenario is they go through some really rough waters for a couple of years and come out on the other side. But the second most likely thing I said last week, which I stand by, is that they get acquired by Tencent. So I don't see that happening tomorrow. In fact, I think it legally can't even happen for a couple of years because the contract they made with the last time Tencent invested. But if Ubisoft can't recover in the next 2 years or so, I think Tencent completely acquires Ubisoft because they're already a massive shareholder in Ubisoft. Fernando, Benji, how are you? Why do Sony and Nintendo don't struggle with their studios and partners? Well, I would say that's not entirely true. Nintendo actually struggles with partners massively. If you look historically at third-party support for Nintendo, it's always been very, very poor. So I would say that that is not true that Nintendo doesn't struggle with third-party partners. In fact, I would say that they struggle the most with third-party partners, more than Xbox or Sony does. However, they definitely struggle a lot less with their first party, and Sony also struggles a lot less. I would say Sony is the best of the bunch in terms of like balance. Like if you're talking about less issues with first party and less issues with third party, Sony probably has the best marriage of those two, where they still get a ton of third party support and their first party studios don't super struggle. I would put Xbox as way more struggling than Nintendo first party, but way more successful with third party. And then I would put Nintendo the complete opposite. Much more successful than Xbox in first party, but much, much more of a struggle with third party partners. So, they all have things that they're somewhat good at or bad at. Sony just happens to have the best marriage of the bunch, which partially explains why PlayStation has been such a massively successful brand essentially every generation. They're like the only one of the bunch that you can point to every single gen is successful. The one that's the closest to not being successful is PS3, and even that in the end ended up selling over 80 million units. You know, we've seen that can't be said of Nintendo. Nintendo's had some massively successful generations. You look at what happened with Wii. You look at what happened with Switch. However, we just can't deny they've also had their Wii U's. They've also had their GameCubes. Xbox has had some very successful generations, the 360. But they've also had their Xbox Ones. And they also had their original Xboxes. The only one who really, like, literally every generation in terms of their mainline console, it's Sony. That has had the most consistent performance. Doesn't mean they've had the highest highs, like, because you could probably point towards, you know, Nintendo having some pretty crazy highs with Wii and with Switch. Obviously, PS2 is better selling than both, but Sony's the most consistent because I think they have the best balance. Now, I think the main thing you're trying to get across here, though, I think you're saying is, why is Microsoft's first party, like their studios, why are they struggling? And I think it's back to what we talked about, Fernando. I think it's a management issue. And that doesn't mean I think it's Phil's fault. I just think that they have to get stronger management chains with this many studios. I think it's becoming a bit of a problem. I think Phil himself and Matt Booty are getting stretched too thin. So they really need really good support beneath them. Tippo Master, I answered this. Do you think this puts Halo Infinite story expansion on Infinite on hiatus? I have heard that there was one in development. If this is true, if it's 140 to 150 people fired, a lot from single player and environment artists, this says to me it's probably canceled. I don't know that, but it says to me that it's probably canceled. Especially with Joe Staten leaving, because I heard that he was involved on that. So I don't know that though, guys. It could still come out, but this to me sure sounds like it was canceled. Sure sounds like it. All right, one question and I'm leaving. I went almost 2 hours today. This is it. I'm picking one, guys, and we're done. I can't believe this many of you stuck with me this long. Crazy. What a fun chat, though. I had fun, guys, but wow. I know that's not much compared to like Twitch streamers that'll stream for like, 24 hours or whatever, but they're usually like playing games and stuff. The fact that you guys sat here with me for 2 hours and chatted video games is blowing my mind. So this is it. We're wrapping it up here. This is the last one. I'm going to pick a random good one. I apologize to anyone I'm going to miss, but we're going to get one and out the dough. I'm going to pick one. This is a quick one, so I'm not going to count it. Alan Barbosa Silver. It seems Atomic Heart will be a hit. I agree. Atomic Heart's looking like it's tracking really well for a non-AAA game. So as long as it's as good as it looks, I agree with you. I think Atomic Heart's going to do really well on PlayStation and Xbox. On Xbox, it's on Game Pass, so that helps it. But even I'm seeing a ton of PlayStation players interested in it. So if it's as good as it looks, I agree. Atomic Heart should be a surprise hit next month. Let me pick one from towards the bottom. For someone that came in late. Khalid Jamal. Hey, Benji, enjoy your content very much. Keep up the good work. I appreciate that. That's very, very kind of you. I feel like my Twitter game hasn't been as good since like late December because it got so slow. Like the news cycle got really, really slow the last like 2 weeks of December. And now it's starting to ramp back up, but it's taken me a little bit to get back into the flow of like regularly posting updates on Twitter. So I apologize. I feel like my Twitter game hasn't been at its peak lately, but I think it'll get better again throughout the year. It was just those like 2 weeks of like no news kind of like made me like go into like autopilot mode. And now it's like trying to ramp back up and into the coverage. So my Twitter game needs to be a little bit better, but I appreciate those kind words, Khalid. Oh, Neo GameSpark, great to see you, dude. What is up, man? I'm a big fan of Neo GameSpark. Great to see you, man. So cool to see you here in chat. Great follow on Twitter. Good guy. But anyways, the second part of your question, Khalid, is when do you think we will hear about The Last of Us Part 3? So for anyone that missed it, it has seemed to be heavily implied that The Last of Us Part 3 is the next game that Neil Druckmann's working on. That to me actually makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of people want a new IP from Naughty Dog, and I think you probably are going to get a new IP. In fact, who knows? There may even be one in pre-production right now. But I think it is very likely that Neil's next game is The Last of Us Part 3. I'm going to explain to you why I think it makes sense, besides like the obvious hints. For if you guys want the obvious hints that that's the next game, there was a report that came from... I can't remember. Oh, it was Anonymous Anon or something like that. It was the guy that's like a super huge leaker for movies and TV. Very reliable. Less so in gaming, but like it's like one of the sources for leaking movies and series news on Twitter. We're talking extremely successful leak rate. Like it's not like 50-50. We're talking like 90% correct. And that account leaked that The Last of Us Part 3 is Neil Druckmann's next game before The Last of Us show even came out. And then also even recently, Neil was doing an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, I believe it was. And they asked Neil if there's going to be more games after Part 2 in terms of like mainline The Last of Us games. And his response was, I feel like there is more story to tell. We also know that Neil said, I think pretty long ago now, fairly shortly after Part 2 came out, he was asked if there would be a Part 3. And he said that the one page was already written. And if you guys don't know what a one page is, the one page is like you don't have a script, but you have an idea. Like you have a one page. Like, hey, this is what The Last of Us Part 3 is. You've already written that page. You already know what you want the next game to be. Again, your script's not ready, nothing like that, but like, you know. It's not like, who knows what Part 3 will be. He already knew what it would be. And if you've beaten Part 2, no spoilers, but it's not really a wrapped up story, to be honest with you. You could end it there if you wanted, but there's several open threads worth exploring that totally makes sense for a Part 3. So I do think it is extremely likely that's Neil's next game. It also makes even more sense now with how huge of a hit the show is. The HBO and Sony are going to want a third game to adapt. Trust me. If these ratings continue, if this show continues to track how it is right now, where it is a monster hit, they're going to want a third game to get more seasons of the show out of. Neil and Craig Mazin have heavily hinted that the second game will be 2 seasons, which completely makes sense because Last of Us Part 2 is significantly longer than Part 1. So I think it actually makes sense to do the second game as a Season 2 and Season 3. If those take 2 years per season, that gives you an extra 4 years. It's actually conceivable that the Last of Us Part 3 video game could be out in time for them to start adapting it to a show shortly afterwards. That's actually kind of lines up if you expect each one of these seasons to take 4 years, because that would mean Part 3 is already in production right now, and you wouldn't even be through The Last of Us Part 2 in terms of the show for another 4 years. So I think it is happening. I think it completely makes sense. And when you would hear about it, still quite a ways. This would still be early in development. Like I said, I wouldn't expect this to release until close to that 4-year mark. So I don't think you would see Part 3 even announced for at least another 2 years. So that would be my opinion on it, Khalid. I think it is coming. I think it is Neil's next game. Don't expect it to see it announced, not released, announced for at least 2 more years, in my opinion. Probably still at least 2 years away before they announce it. All right, everyone. Oh, I missed a super chat. JCat, thanks for letting me know because I was about to ask, or about to bounce. Oh, yeah, great. A final super chat here from Highlander, and then we are gone, guys, because I went for 2 hours. Highlander with a 5 super chat. Thoughts on the Chinese government taking control interest in Tencent? I mean, it's definitely sketchy. Let's just be honest here. Anytime you have the government of any nation, like I'm not just saying China, any nation, anytime where you have a government having so much of a controlling force inside of a business, that should be alarming. That should be alarming for any, like I said, if this happened in the United States, if this happened in China, if this happened in the UK, you just name a country. Anytime you have the government having that much invested into an individual business, that should raise some red flags because you can't always trust that that business is always going to be doing what they believe is best for the consumer or doing, which you never have a guarantee, but in order to have a successful business, usually you're trying to work for the consumer because you want to sell goods, right? Things change a little bit whenever you have a government essentially having say in what happens within that company. So I would say, Highlander, it is very alarming. And I would feel the same way about any company at any other government, any of them. You just name any company at any government, and if it starts to be a controlling interest, should be a little worrying. That should be a bit of a worrying sign. And Tencent in general isn't known to have particularly the best business practices. So I would say it's a little worrying, absolutely. I don't have a massively hot take on it because Tencent primarily doesn't operate in the stuff that I mostly cover. Now, we know that Tencent wants to get more involved in console gaming and AAA and PC gaming, but a lot of what Tencent is known for is for mobile. And as you guys know, I cover zero mobile, which probably upsets some people that follow me for just sales and the business side, not so much for the gaming news. People that only follow me for that stuff might be a little upset that I don't ever tweet about mobile gaming, but I don't because I don't care about it, and I don't get paid to do it. If I was a paid analyst, which I'm not, but if I was and I was good enough to do that job, of course I'd talk about mobile because it's a very important part of the industry. But guess what? I'm just a dude. I am a random guy who likes video games and thinks that the sales and business side of it is fascinating. So I only talk about the stuff that I care about, and I don't care about mobile gaming. So Tencent, like I said, less directly involved mostly with the stuff that I work on, though Tencent is invested in some way to many of these companies. They just aren't making the games, but they are invested in many console and PC game makers. So it is alarming, but I don't have a nuclear hot take for you. Okay, guys, I'm going to call it there. Thank you so much for a great chat. Thanks for sticking with me so long. That was a super, super long chat, but I actually had a blast, so I hope you guys had fun too. Thank you for all of the super chats today. Thanks for liking the polls. You guys seem to dig that. I'll try and have a poll ready for each. If you guys notice, my thumbnail usually has like 2 big topics, and then of course we diverge from that, but I always have like the 2 big topics and then me and my thumbnail. I'll try each chat to have a poll idea ready for each of the main topics, because you guys seem to like that, and I like getting your guys' feedback too. So thanks so much, guys. Hit like if you like doing these videos. Subscribe to the channel if you like doing these chats. We do one every single week, except for in weird weeks where I miss them. I will be back next week, of course. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already. I'm Benji-Sales on Twitter. That's where I'm the most active. Stay safe, play some games, and I will see you guys all either here next week on YouTube, or I will see you on Twitter very, very soon. Have a good one, guys. Have a great day, great night, wherever you are,